As India commemorates 75 years of its independence, a new script is being written on the economic front. India recently surpassed the United Kingdom to become the fifth biggest economy. The country's nominal GDP in the first quarter clocked over 854 billion US dollars against the United Kingdom's 816 billion US dollars in the same period. Combined with the Aatmanirbhar Bharat mission, or a resolve for self-reliance, and the Make in India program, India aims to transform itself into a global manufacturing and design export hub. Industrialists across the spectrum predict that by the end of the decade, India will enter the rarefied air of the top 3 economies of the world. South Asia Focus brings you a detailed story on the subject.
As India commemorates 75 years of its independence, a new script is being written on the economic front. A tripartite foundation of a determined political will to take difficult decisions for the greater good, speedy implementation of fiscal objectives, and a science and technology-based development model have propelled India to the coveted top 5 economies of the world. India recently surpassed the United Kingdom to become the 5th biggest economy. The country's nominal GDP in the first quarter clocked over 854 billion USD against the United Kingdom's 816 billion USD in the same period. Among all major economies, India's growth at 3.83% in the 3-year period is the highest, followed by the United States at 3.78%, Canada at 2.58%, the UK at 1.06%, France at 0.68%, and Japan at negative 1.27%. What is even more significant in this achievement is the fact that India reached these numbers at a time when the world was still struggling with the economic fallout of COVID-induced shocks.
The Prime Minister used the challenge of the pandemic as an opportunity of the multiple rounds of economic reforms which covered vast sectors of the economy, which has deeply enhanced the productivity, long-term productivity of the economy.
Industrialists across the spectrum predict that by the end of the decade, India will enter the rarefied air of the top 3 economies of the world. Before we dive deeper into the numbers that led the country to this milestone, let's take a step back and ask some questions. How did India reach here? Was the Indian economic structure resilient enough to absorb COVID-induced shocks? Was the government pro-business, or was it more focused on regulatory compliances? The answer to all 3 questions can be traced to the immediate aftermath of the COVID lockdowns, wherein employment numbers, economic growth, and consumption had halted the world over. While countries around the world, in panic, doled out billions under the guise of stimulus packages to sustain their economies, Indian policy maintained a traditional, conservative approach that ensured that fundamentals of the economy were nurtured, and a welfare net was also in place to assist the poor.
Throughout the pandemic, India was one country where we remained prudent and we did a number of reforms without going into excessive spending, which could have hurt us.
India relied on increased capex funding so that employment generation and infrastructure development took center stage while inflationary headwinds were countered. The government of India announced a special economic package of 267 billion USD and gave a clarion call to build a self-reliant India. This package was not to be confused as a mere bailout, but instead were supportive measures that created a business ecosystem that had the right incentives to thrive on its own and result in trickle-down benefits to the working population. The major components of the business support package included financial measures for micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. Instead of providing cash handouts, the additional support was provided in the form of concessional credits to farmers, as well as a credit facility for street vendors. India's incredible pace of immunization proved instrumental in its economic resurgence. After a sharp contraction in the first quarter since the COVID outbreak, and a moderate contraction in the following months, the Indian economy registered a sharp V-shaped growth trajectory. The Production Linked Incentive Scheme, PLI, was launched to develop an incentive-based model to boost domestic manufacturing. Analysts believe that PLI can contribute up to 4% to the GDP annually in terms of incremental revenue. India's PLI scheme has yielded bumper dividends as a large number of industries have shown a massive rise in the scale of their production. India's toy industry is one such example, in which there has been a huge turnaround. It is a shining story of importer to exporter and a bright example of brand India at work. Digital India led from the front during the COVID distress when India distributed nearly $5 billion USD in cash benefits to the impoverished, direct to their accounts. The country was already on a digital-first trajectory with one of the highest volumes of digital transactions in the world when the pandemic struck, and further propelled the use of contactless digital technology. India is now clocking around 100 million digital transactions a day, with a volume of 67 billion USD, about a 5-times jump from 2016. A World Economic Forum 2020 report says the use of digital technology led to savings of nearly 23 billion USD, 98% of this by eliminating erroneous beneficiaries. Getting the basics right, India has ensured a strong bedrock of tools that a country needs to make quantum leaps in the economic growth of its people. A business-friendly government is taking decisions to maximize the potential of its workforce and provide companies with the right tools to thrive in this business-friendly ecosystem. India's mixed economy model has defeated all economic templates and has set an example before the world. Owing to leaps taken by the country through this road, economists predict that India will become one of the top 3 economies in the world.
What it is telling you in the broader context, leaving aside the UK, the specific thing, is that India is moving up the power scale. And according to my earlier forecast, by 28 to 30, we will become the 3rd largest country.
Those who have invested in the India story have more to look forward to. The PM Gati Shakti is a master plan for coordinated implementation of infrastructure projects, with around 16 ministries on board to coordinate seamless transportation of goods and other services. The scheme's rapid implementation is moving at the same pace of growth as the country's rapidly accelerating economy. It is also reducing travel time for people across the country. The scheme has over 900 layers of central ministries' data and 654 layers of states' data, which are available at the click of a button. Gone are the days of running pillar to post for clearance from different ministries. Central databases have now made the old style of functioning redundant. In addition to emphasis on building infrastructure projects like highways, bridges, ports, and airports, the government is also giving priority to build special economic zones to provide an internationally competitive and hassle-free environment for exports. GIFT City is a planned business district in Gujarat having multi-service special economic zones. Built on 886 acres, it offers a competitive edge to financial services and technology-related activities. To further accelerate economic growth, the government also launched Startup India, a flagship initiative with the agenda to actively support startups and entrepreneurs. Today, India boasts being the 3rd largest startup ecosystem across the world, with over 100 unicorns and more than 60,000 startups operating within the country. India's position in the Global Innovation Index has improved from 81st in 2015 to 46th in 2022.
इतने कम समय में हम 81 से 46 तक आए हैं, लेकिन यहाँ रुकना नहीं है, अभी और ऊपर जाना है। आज भारत में रिकॉर्ड संख्या में पेटेंट हो रहे हैं, नए-नए इनोवेशन हो रहे हैं।
Combined with the Aatmanirbhar Bharat mission, or a resolve for self-reliance, and the Make in India program, India aims to transform itself into a global manufacturing and design export hub. Consumption, investment, and exports, which represent the 3 key engines of the Indian economy, have all grown strongly at about 26%, 20%, and 15%, respectively, over the last year. The growth in investment of 20% over last year signals that investors are now comfortable to start investing in the Indian economy. Reduction in restrictive compliances, a strong infrastructure foundation, an educated workforce, and one of the largest markets in the world sends a strong message to investors around the world. India is open for business.